Okay, well, we know that I don't like introductions on this podcast, on BackChat, the YouTube show, and it's difficult because sometimes people need introductions on this show. But the man in front of us today, the man that sits with us, is very, very generous with his time, could possibly be the greatest to ever do it in front of a microphone. And mind you, he's done it on the football field as well as a coach and a player. There's no further introduction needed. The great, the GOAT, Dennis Cometti. G'day, Dennis. How are you, mate?
G'day, Will. Good.
Good
to be here too.
Mate,
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us. You're here with Dan, Will, and Dennis. I mean, I feel we've had some decent sized guests on this, but I've been a bit nervous today, Dennis. I don't know if you find that weird or not, because you call the game, I've idolised you for a long time, and it's good to have you in the flesh here, mate.
Any news to you? I'm a little nervous myself because I don't do too much of this now, so I've come out of hibernation. I don't think I've retired, but hibernation is the word. I'm doing nothing.
That's a good thing,
Retired people do something.
You've been working for a long time, though, Dennis.
A long time, yeah.
Now, the first question we ask, and you are not immune to the same question we give every single one of our guests. I'm looking for the greatest sporting achievement, not on the football field. Now, we know that you could play. We know that you could speak. But I would like a sporting achievement in another realm.
Another sport, another
Cricket,
era.
Skateboarding, poker. I don't know. You're quick on your feet, Dennis.
Well, that's tough off the top, isn't it? That's a tough one. I think it's the time I dreamt I got a hole in one at Carano. That was big. I woke up and I thought a couple of things have happened to me. I was very excited.
And reality? Can you play golf?
Not really. Only a person who can't play golf would dream of that. I mean, that's obvious, isn't it?
Oh, that's unreal. Okay. Well, I mean, that could actually trump your little one, Dan.
Oh, it's not a little one.
Tell Dan. Dan's got a.
Look,
nice
I have some good bowling figures. 5 for 16.
Real or dreamt?
In a grand final. No, there's a trophy behind you. See that? See that cricket ball there? That's
the only trophy you've got. My God!
I've got some second place ribbons and stuff, but that's the big one. Yeah, 5 for 16.
Nizzy wanted to hang on to the cup. We couldn't quite get it for the show, so he's hold on to that. Now, I mean, for those of you who don't know, we've got a relatively young audience, Dennis. I mean,
I understand what you're saying.
No, don't.
I do.
Don't do that. But I think. Off a bit of research, I think people probably don't understand or appreciate the fact that you're a player first. Played footy through your juniors, played waffle, played for West Perth, played 40 games for West Perth, 63 goals in 1 year in 1968. Is that correct?
You forgot the second semi-final. It was another 4.
Okay. Are we including?
Not that I remember those things. It's all about the team.
You know what? Who does that? Forwards.
Yeah.
Forward. You're a true forward knowing how many goals you kicked, Dennis.
Well, a forward who only kicked 68 in his career.
Did you win that game, though?
No, we lost.
You moved from the waffle and you do your knee? You're injured?
I feigned something. I think I took my wife to the football. The first time I took her, actually, she wasn't my wife at this stage. And I sat her on the bank at Claremont. We're playing Claremont. And it was the first game in 69, and I'd done my knee the previous year in 68 in the final. And I ran up in the ground and I did it again. So I sort of turned around, went back inside, didn't warm up.
Wow.
And anyway, it ends well. After the game, this was our first date actually. I thought I'll thrill her with this. So I'm sort of limping around the outer. It's after Polly had spoken to us. The game was a draw, did I say that?
Graham Polyfarmy, your coach.
He was the coach, yes.
And you're in a draw.
Yeah, we're in the draw. So after the speech, which was boring to a bloke who didn't play, I sort of started to limp around the other side where I'd left her in the sunshine on a rug. I'm about 20 metres away, and there she is reading a book still. I left her reading a book. She may not have looked at the game, and she looked up and she said, "You played very well today."
That's great. Supportive.
Aren't they wonderful? Wives and girlfriends.
And you're still married to the lovely...
Oh, yeah, never leaving now.
What a match made in heaven.
Couldn't
care less about your football ability.
And didn't notice the limp, none of it.
Did you claim it? Did you go, "Oh, thank you"?
No, I didn't. I just ignored it. I thought she knows nothing about football, even less than I thought. So I asked her about the book.
You go over to Melbourne.
Yes.
You're listed. You're on an AFL, well, a VFL list at that time, the Western Bulldogs.
Yes.
And you don't play a game. Do you look back on your footballing career and think what could have been?
No, I don't at all, because I hadn't played for the previous year and a half, I don't think, since that Claremont game that I ran out on. But what happened was something happened with West Perth and the Bulldogs. They had some sort of agreement. So I went to the Bulldogs, but I was going to work nights on 3DB starting at 7 o'clock. So really it was never going to work.
Like the radio station?
Yeah, the radio station, playing sort of, up-tempo.
You're a DJ?
Yeah, I was a DJ, up-tempo stuff. To the 3DB audience, which was new. They were trying an experiment. 3DB was a sort of well-known station, but not for playing pop music. Anyway, what happened was I'd be leaving training and Ted would be coming on at 7 o'clock. I'd be going at about 20 to 7, say, and Ted's coming out to take training. So I never knew how that came about, other than I was the clearance wrangle. I was in a clearance wrangle prior to the season for 4 weeks, not cleared.
A wrangle.
A wrangle, I love it. I was almost going to put that on my plates. Wrangle. But I don't know what I was doing there. I hadn't played. I didn't want to go there because I knew I couldn't sort of really do any good for myself or them.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. I mean, you obviously got multiple facets to your broadcasting career. There's radio, there was TV, but holistically, did your time playing and then coaching? You coached West Perth, you coached some local footy sides for some premierships. Do you think that was an important part of being a good broadcaster, actually playing the game, or is it?
Well, it doesn't hurt, does it? I don't think it's a big help, but it doesn't hurt if you're sort of imbued in the game and you play even sort of at an underage level. I think up to under 18s or something. I still think that you sort of take something from that, and if you've got good coaches, you learn from them, not how to play it, but the game itself.
I hear some people say, "Oh, you haven't played the game, you can't commentate," and I don't think that's right. But I also don't think if you have played the game that you know everything there is to know either.
No, I met a lot of blokes like that, coaching them.
What about, how did you then get into the actual commentary side of things? Because not everyone can just, you turn on a mic and people freak out. You didn't study commentating AFL as a kid.
Well, it was all very strange because I went to the ABC from 6PR. That was my last commercial stop, and then I went to the ABC, and they saw me as a cricket commentator. So I was down to do the cricket, and I did a lot of cricket, and they virtually didn't care what I did in the winter, so I could go and do other things. And football really wasn't, for me, the thing that I wanted to do in terms of broadcasting. I just wanted to play music and just bounce around. But it worked out that way that I could sort of go to the football, and eventually I started commentating some football on 6PR, and the ABC happened to hear it, and they said, would you like to come to work for the ABC? Now, the ABC is a place that I really loved working at because it's the one place that teaches you, it sort of looks after you, it nourishes you, and sort of it takes you through. They don't say this is the way to do it, they say this is the way we want you to do it. And that's different. I mean, there's no perfect way to do anything. People vary, and so do the way they broadcast, and it can be entertaining for anybody and by anybody. But anyway, I sort of was the cricket man, but then when push came to shove, I was supposed to go, this is a long-winded story, but I was supposed to go to England with Alan McGilvray, who was a well-known commentator, a sort of doyen of Australian cricket commentators. I was supposed to go with him one winter and forsake the football altogether. And it turned out that Alan was going and I was going with him. That was the way it was going to be. But Alan had so many friends over there, I thought this is going to be the loneliest 4 months of my life. So I said, no, I don't want to go. And they said, well, you better leave. It was pretty much like that.
If you're not going to come, you don't get a job.
They thought they were giving me keys to the city. You know, like cricket was a big deal with the ABC. Yeah. And in Perth, we broadcast a lot of cricket. And I really enjoyed it, but I didn't want to be there for just 5 matches, like the test matches, and broadcast none of them, and just do sort of games against county sides and report back to Australia what happened against, one of their county sides. That's not really how I saw it going, because I thought that's going to be very lonely.
So you start your career commentating cricket. I've heard some of it. I've got to be honest, it sounds strange to me. I know you as the voice of footy. I know you as the voice of the Olympics. I haven't heard much of your cricket action, even though you were doing a fair bit of cricket work when I should have been listening, but I wasn't.
I got a tape in the car. We'll
go out there. Perfect. Again, holistically, cricket, footy, and then across different mediums in radio and TV. Mm-hmm. Very different. and cricket's a very different sport to commentate to footy, and TV is a very different way to commentate than radio.
Well, even more so if you do it like a disc jockey.
You
Back to my roots.
You see yourself only as a disc jockey that just learned how to speak into a microphone by the sounds of things.
Best fun a young man could have, just shooting at breeze.
Yeah. And music, it must have been a big part of your life then, and
still is. I've got a playlist that goes to about 1,500 at the moment, and that's just 60s music. So in the car, I deliberately get lost. I just turn it up. And I come to your place. I left my place at 6 o'clock. It's 10 minutes away.
Yeah, and it's 9 o'clock now. Doesn't it? Wondering where you are.
Wondering where you were.
It's very good. Okay, so you move through cricket, you move into footy, you move out of radio and into TV.
Yes.
What's that transition like for you? Is it hard?
Not really, no, because I was doing a lot of television at the ABC by the end. I was
Right.
doing shows about football, but not calling the game so much. So after it's a strange situation. After coaching, you'd go in to television and host a show.
Yeah.
And
right.
more irony still, the bloke who was alongside me was the previous West Perth coach.
So you took his job at West Perth.
But I thought, well, I've taken his job, I'll offer him one. Do you want to come and sit on the panel? And so we were sitting there shooting the breeze on a Saturday night, and it was terrific, really good.
Yeah, I mean,
Graham won a premiership, incidentally. I didn't.
So is that a regret?
That I didn't win a premiership?
Yep.
Well, yeah, I think Graham perhaps could have swapped his for something else, like a preliminary final that I had, but no, he wasn't in that business at all.
Okay, so what about you as a broadcaster and as a commentator? I've got to tell a quick story. So my first, obviously growing up, I've heard your voice across football, but we're in my garage right now, Dan. I don't think that's any secret. We've told our listeners that that's where we do this. You came and picked me up with your lovely wife, forgetting her name right now. Velia. And you took me to the footy. It was one of my first experiences of being a special commentator at the footy. Anyway, we drive to the footy, Dan, and Dennis is driving and chatting away. And first of all, the first thing I noticed, you had a big manila folder type set up with every player, lists and numbers and notes on every single player that was playing. It was incredibly detailed from what I could see. And then we get to the footy, and I'm walking and chatting away to the great Dennis Cometti. It was a big moment for me. I mean, come on now, you're going to commentate with Dennis Cometti. We go up a lift in the Optus Stadium and we go up to the top. I'm chatting away, and I was talking away. And as we get out and open it up, there's this big sign at the top of the lift, big sign at the top of the door that says, the Dennis Cometti Media Centre. And I think, I might be out of my depth a little bit. Dennis, do you remember that? It was incredibly insightful for me. I guess the questions...
I don't normally go that way, but for you, I went that way.
Usually go in the back door, you thought I'll just take him past the
Probably got his own door.
The questions I had out of it is that preparation element.
Yes.
It became a big part of what you do. Were you a numbers man? Were you a memories? How did you used to do it?
Well, no, I wasn't a numbers man, really. I just watched a lot of tape. And back in the day when I was at 7, I was doing 3 games a weekend and travelling state to state. So it was a full week, but they didn't ask me to do anything in the summer. I sort of got the summers off. So that was good.
So you lived here and travelled out to
games? Yeah, it was non-negotiable. I wouldn't go to Victoria. And the same with Bruce McAvaney. He wanted to stay in South Australia. I mean, now it's probably likely both of us would be told just to get lost, because everyone is doing it.
Get in the bunker. Get in the bunker.
All of that stuff. So the pandemic has probably impacted sports broadcasting as well. But anyway, it was enjoyable. I didn't mind. I used to like sitting down and watching tape. It was relaxing. It was a way to sort of just sit there and let it run over you. And when you went to the weekend, you always felt as though you were pretty well primed to do a good job. It's a terrific feeling in any occupation, I'm sure, when you close the front door and you're off to do something and you feel as though I've got it. I've been in situations where I've not closed the front door at all and went back inside. But sometimes, are very rare in that situation in a working sense.
A lot of, musicians, when they're creating music, they look to their sort of predecessors and they listen to music and they get that for inspiration. Did you ever do that with, you said watching a lot of tape. Did you sort of borrow things from other commentators and sort of make it your own?
I think every state has a way of broadcasting, or had a way of broadcasting. Now it's become sort of a conglomerate of all of them. But I remember as a boy, you'd hear the Victorian commentators call, and they were different to the local guys, and the Perth guys were different to the South Australian guys. And because they were operating in their state, they didn't hear much of the other football. I mean, everyone had what they thought was the best competition. Now, the competition in Western Australia back when I was around was very, very strong. Some great Victorian players came here at the height of their careers, simply because the licensing laws were different. And what happened in Western Australia was the local clubs had more money than the Victorian clubs. Kevin Murray, there's a great name out of the past, a Brownlow medalist. Well, he came here and coached for 2 years before he went back and won the Brownlow. I mean, things like that were commonplace. Leading goal kickers, one came to West Perth. Players in their prime came to West Perth. That was, I'm trying to think who it was now, the goal kicker. I should know that. I played with him.
Was it money? When you say licensing, was it better money over here? Was it better standard of the footy, or?
No, what happened was the licensing laws made drinking harder to do on a Saturday and Sunday over the weekend, particularly Sunday.
The liquor licensing.
Yes, the liquor licensing laws. So we had 2 sessions at football clubs, and you couldn't move. Like people went to the sessions because the pubs were closed.
Right.
So in Victoria, not the case. They were more liberal. So the money actually existed in Western Australia. I don't know if it's the same in South Australia, but the wonderful players who came here, you know, in their prime, Bob Johnson, Don Williams. And Don Williams went back and played in a couple of Melbourne premierships. It was really remarkable, the players that came. And when Gabelich came back, you name a player and there's a chance he did come back and play her at some stage before going back to Victoria.
You sound like, just hearing you talk about, you know, back in the day, and I've heard you speak about it before. So asking if you're not a numbers guy, are you a stories guy? Is that you watch tape and you watch vision and you learn by doing that? When you're calling, are you thinking about like the character and the player, or you just got words running through your head?
I'm thinking about nothing. I'm thinking about the Beatles and the Rolling Stones.
Fair.
I don't know what I'm thinking about. No, I don't.
Are you relaxed?
I feel really relaxed. I enjoy it. It's. I think the footy is my natural habitat. I mean, I was going there since I was 5. I started out. The first game I ever went to was East Perth and East Fremantle. Polly Farmer was playing, and another guy called Jack Clark. Now, looking back at those games, historic in their way because 2 great players. Jack Clark actually was in every All-Australian team picked during his time as a player, and
sounds like
he's
Matthew
the only
Pavlich.
bloke. There was 4 picked during his time as a player, and he's the only player ever to have been. He got in his second year into the All-Australian team. He's the only player who's ever been picked in every All-Australian team, picked while he was playing.
Wow.
He was the other ruckman up against Farmer. They were both great players.
Wow.
Won a Sandover. So I was brought up watching these sorts of players. I mean, the standard of football was terrific, and I just loved being part of it. And I had a couple of games. I was only a child, which helped as well, I think, too. Because you'd go home and I sort of invented a game of footy that I actually called probably when I was about 9 or 10.
People talk about your relationship, the chemistry you had with Bruce McAvaney. You worked with him a lot during your career. Is that like a cricket partnership where I look at cricket, right, and it's a very individual thing. You can't do much up the other end.
No.
But you've got to have chemistry. You've got to understand what they're going to do next. Is that a good
I
way to look at it? How were you?
Well, we got on very well. We still do. I mean, we're not close, but at the same time, I really respect him, and I hope he respects me. But he would come in. It was one of those things that was reassuring because he'd come in with this pile of books and stuff, like Albus Dumbledore. He'd just walk in and he'd sit down, and I had nothing. I had one piece of paper and the budget, or whatever they call it, the record. So there's Albus and I, and we're calling the footy. And it was just terrific.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, you've got some great one-liners, Dennis. I mean,
no, I can't remember any of them.
I've got a few for you.
Yeah.
I'm going to throw some at you throughout the session if you'll humour me.
Yeah, Yeah, I'll laugh.
Hawthorn player Bradley Hill was playing against Richmond's Camden McIntosh. This one sounds like a recent one because they're both still playing. Hill ran on to kick a goal. They say it's easy to run downhill. Tell that to McIntosh.
I think you got the inflection wrong. They say it's easy to run downhill. Tell that to McIntosh.
Now, okay,
Perfect.
you can. Okay, you sound like Dennis Cometti. You had to do that for a few PlayStation games, or have you had to record your voice for some of these games that get rolled out? AFL 2007, AFL 2008.
I've done a few of those.
We had Matty Richardson on who did special comments for that, and it said it took him 3 or 4 days of actually commentating into a microphone, staring at a wall, of repeating yourself over and over.
It was a long, sort of debilitating process, but
What
there was remuneration.
good? What was the one you said?
Richo did say you couldn't pay him enough to do that again. I don't think he had a good of experience as you. There is one. I used to play the game a lot. There's a call that my friends and I talk about of yours, and I've got to know if you wrote it or if did they give you any lines to say, or did you come up with all of them?
No, they gave us lines, but you could sort of improvise and go your own way if you
Yeah.
if you thought you had something better.
Yeah, so this is one of yours, and obviously I'm not going to do it any justice. If a green creature approached me from outer space, do you know where I'm going with this? Can you remember
I
that?
can't remember.
Okay, if a
Just
green
the
creature
50 years commentating.
if a green creature approached me from outer space and asked me to show it a good day out, I would, without a moment of hesitation, take it unswervingly to Bendigo.
No, I would never have said that. I would have said Ballarat.
Well,
I'm a Ballarat man.
what it actually said was take it unswervingly to, and then you can tell the inflection is different that you've had to say like a bunch of places.
Bendigo.
Unswervingly to Bendigo.
Ballarat.
So where's that line come
Well, that
from?
sounds more like a commercial. I mean, was it a commercial? I don't remember.
That was on-
that sounds
that was on the
very
game.
wordy for a commentary at the football. Like the ball would have to be out of bounds for 20 minutes.
Players that play 26, 27, 28, they're in their prime.
Yes.
Were you in your prime at any age? I mean that in the most respect.
mean-
I feel like you were a good commentator for a long time. Did you feel better at any stage?
No, not really. I can't think. No, I don't think there was ever that feeling that I'm in my prime now.
Yeah.
Although later on, I thought several times, I wish I was in my prime. But I couldn't identify where it was. I just knew I'd passed it.
What about calling something like the Olympic Games?
Yes.
Were you travelling for those? Were you?
Yeah, we went.
I mean, that must have been a pretty epic experience. You commentated Kieran Perkins,
Yes,
that epic 1500 metre. Do those moments rank higher than the others, or is there football games that? I mean, you would have seen some.
Well, look, I wasn't a swimming aficionado. The only sort of reason they selected me was I had a pool in the backyard, I think. But anyway, I got a few trips on the back of that pool. No, look, it was the only thing that was a little bit of a problem for me was that they had the heats in the morning and then the finals in the evening.
Yeah.
There was a long wait around. You know, I'd rather sort of when something starts, it just goes. Like a footy match.
Yeah.
Or even a cricket match. I mean, as slow as the tempo may be sometimes, not now so much, but certainly back in the day of Sheffield Shield cricket and Test cricket being the big noise, then, there was still a tempo to it. When sports don't have sort of a continual sort of flow to what is the result you're after or a result, then I suppose you're always a bit toey. Like you get something done in the morning and then you're waiting around all day. You know the field, you know what they're going to do. The good thing about swimming is in the lanes they go nowhere. So as a result, they're going to be where they started. Not like a footy match.
You don't need the binoculars out.
No, you don't need those. So
Would you use binoculars in games?
no.
Some guys do. Some guys and girls do.
I know. I never took my eyes off the monitors. They had 2 monitors. The heroes of my life and my career were the cameramen at Channel 7.
Really?
Yeah, and Channel 9. I was at Channel 9 for 4 years as well. Because, well, you've got a close-up shot of what's going on one camera, and you've got a distant shot from the other camera, or cameras, you know, they're doing jobs plural. But at the same time, when they throw them up, you've got them right up close. I think that was my legacy, I think. I did introduce that because I didn't like just calling off the field, because why would you? I mean, the person at home has got a better view than the commentator at the ground.
Right.
So with those two screens, it was perfect as far as I was concerned. I found it so easy just to roll off one to the other. And if you've got the close-up of anything that's happening on the ground, then you can be in full control of it. You don't want a long shot, and sometimes they give you a long shot and you can't really work out what the heck's going on.
There's not too many that do that.
No, there's not many.
So
more have started.
You're the pioneer.
Oh, well, I'd like to say that.
Well, maybe.
Yes.
That's what
I was getting. It was a long-winded way of introducing myself as the pioneer, wasn't
Dennis, the pioneer Cometti. I watch guys do it. I don't know how you watch through binoculars. I don't know.
It just seems like it moves too fast to follow it.
Yeah. Bruce always did binoculars, stood up, didn't look at monitors. He just stood up but he's a racing caller at his heart, I think.
Yes.
And so that suited him. Everyone's got different styles, but as long as they sort of gel, and I think I never had a problem gelling with anyone really in broadcasting, no matter who your companion was, Sandy Roberts or, Sandy was a terrific bloke. I worked with Sandy in Perth. He came to Perth and worked on a radio station with me. He wasn't playing the records, he was reading the news. I had the gun job.
So you were spinning the decks.
I was,
while
yes,
Sandy
I
was battling over by the microphone.
Yes.
Do you now, or did you during your career as a broadcaster get to go to many games and watch as a fan?
Not many.
And would you have liked to have?
No, not really. I mean, 3 a weekend was enough. Although now I probably watch about 4 or 5.
So what were you doing? Friday, Saturday, Sunday?
Yes, yeah, but quite often in another state, sort of on the Sunday. But it was all good fun.
It's a lot of travel.
A lot of travel, yeah, but the points mounted up. I remember one year, Ansit's computer broke down. So I'd already... Oh, hang on a sec. This microphone's live. I sort of...
How many years ago
I had used the points.
Ansett.
Yeah.
They're gone.
That's right. Of course.
They're gone.
They're gone. I can poke my tongue out. So what happened was I sort of had some points and I used them, and there were thousands of them. Nothing else around the house. There were just points, lying there, bits of paper. There's another 1,000 points. So I've taken the trip, and I come back, and Ansett have lost all record of the points.
No.
So I shouldn't admit this, but I took another trip on the same points.
Nice.
Yep.
They hadn't lost the points. They hadn't taken them off you.
Well, that's right. But something had happened on the computer, so I regret this now. If Mr. Ansett, no.
Shortly after they folded, so maybe that was
Thanks
the
a lot,
straw.
Dennis.
Well, if everyone did what I did, I can see why they folded.
That's their fault. Well, you were saying you watch quite a few games a weekend. 4 or 5 is a good amount. Is it hard to switch off your brain from commentating? Are you thinking the thoughts in your head, or?
No, I've taken to retirement very well. I don't know who they are for time now. I'm sitting there asking my wife. She's reading the paper.
She was still thinking about your marvellous game when you met, Dennis. She's still thinking about that 19-year-old young man that
played very well.
Was limping off the ground.
Those words are they're in here. They're in here, Will. They'll never go away.
How did you learn young players?
The new players coming in.
Yeah, did you have to go on?
Well, it's funny because I was never really, in company. If you go to a party or something and you meet people, I was never really good at retaining their names. But for footballers, I don't know. I went the extra step, and it wasn't hard. No, I found that if I sort of could see them in my mind's eye, know what position they played, I could almost guarantee I'd get them at the weekend. But now, of course, as I say, it's funny, if you don't use a skill, you lose a skill.
Referring to Melbourne player Adam Uze, beautiful player. Remember the name, YZE. Terrific young player. Bad Scrabble hand.
Well, good. Well, you can't make anything out of it, can you? I said that?
You did, apparently.
That's sheer genius. Play it again. You have not played it the first time.
Oh no, it's not Dennis enough. I can't do it, Dennis. Do you rehearse these? I mean, there's no way you're coming up with those all on the spot. I'm telling you. Well, you tell me. No,
before, when you look at the team, you think, the bloke YZE. Can you make anything of that? And then it just occurs to you, Bruce wouldn't have thought of that.
He would have been in his book
Bruce is deep in discussion with himself about far more serious things than Adam Uze.
Were you critical of yourself? Did you know when you make mistakes?
No,
No,
I just...
You didn't care?
Left notes for myself. Dennis, you're a genius. I did, just all around the house.
Errors, errors you would have made them. Were they water off duck's back?
Well, they've got to be, don't they? I mean, what could you do? I was pretty lucky. I don't think there were any really bad ones, you know, sometimes a slip of the tongue or whatever. But no, I can't think of anywhere. Things that you get wrong within a game sometimes. Now and again you might call a bloke who kicks a goal the wrong one if they're in a pack or something. But that was in the early days, I think, not so much later because I had the television monitors, as I said. But no, I can't remember anything that really embarrasses me now. You know, when you sort of do things as a young man in life.
Yes.
There's always a few instances that you remember where if you think of it while you're in bed, you pull the covers over your head.
Yes.
Yeah,
the skeletons come out the closet.
I've got none in football.
I mean, you're just speaking about then the closet. The skeleton comes out of the closet for me, kicking out for West Coast against Western Bulldogs. You probably called this, and it would have been something one-liner. I'm sure you've been saving for years. I went to kick out. I went to kick the ball to myself.
Yeah.
But I missed my hands. It went over my shoulder and it bounced through for a behind. I kicked it behind from the kick out.
Was I on?
Well, I don't know. I was playing. The reaction would have been Dennis just chuckling away up in the box. Look at this fool go at it. Yeah, it's interesting. I kind of look at, not that I'm anywhere near you, but I look at being in the media and errors that I make when I'm on radio or TV, and I am critical of myself. So I just wondered if you were like that, but
no, I am.
You seem easy. You seem easy going. Maybe you just didn't make the errors, Dennis.
You'd have to ask my wife. I would get upset about certain things. You know, like if I had a bad day, I'd sort of. I don't think I was slapping myself on the back. I always found things that I did wrong, but I don't think any of them were catastrophic. My wife told me not anyway. She was very good at that department too. Yeah. that was very good. That was okay, wonderful. But anyway, you get through, don't you? And I don't remember things. If you said to me, is there something you'd like to undo in a commentary sense, I can't really think of anything, you know, like I can't.
What about, you go.
Oh, I was going to say, what would a bad day for Dennis in commentary be? Would it just be like feeling like you're not in rhythm or, you know, saying wrong players' names? Like, what?
Well, I think you set out, every commentator or broadcaster, I think, sets out to be word perfect. And, you know, some days if you sort of stumble over words or something, it's like a branding iron. You remember when you did it, you know, what you did, what you should have done better. And they were the things that stuck with me. You know, like I'd go home and for all the good I may have done, according to my wife, there were still these things that were nagging at me if I just stumbled over a word. It may not be a player's name. It might be just something in the action. I just didn't like doing that. And I think people who do jobs like that, like I did, probably feel the same way. Some not so much. I mean, some are more carefree, and I actually sort of envy them in some respects. You know, I could get really down on myself if I did those little things because I was trying to get as good a call as I could get. So I didn't want anything, whether it's a wrong name or just a stumble on a word. I think I was pretty hard on myself at times, but I mellowed as I went along.
Trying to get centimetre perfect.
Pretty much. Oh yes.
Sucks.
No.
we worked,
How far into this are we before we pull that out?
we worked that out together like a tag team.
Yeah.
Like Bruce and Dennis going at it.
I stepped out for 10 minutes before Dennis and I got together and gave him some softballs. So
That's right.
That's very good. What about big games you've done? Were the most memorable or best games you did grand finals because of the quality, or was there games within seasons that?
No, well, I've got a story. I've been asked. You haven't asked a question I haven't been asked, to be honest.
Oh, is that a challenge, Dennis? I've got a big computer screen
no,
here.
you've asked
We can
many.
get with
No,
it.
you've asked many. But no, I remember the strangest thing that happened, and you'll know the year. I think the grand final, Geelong and Hawthorn.
89.
Okay, so Dermot gets flattened at the opening bounce.
Yeah.
Okay. So who was it that came and got him? Who came off the line?
That's terrible, but Neville Bruns.
No, it wasn't Neville Bruns. I've got it written here somewhere. I just wanted to see how good you were.
Who was it? You don't have to say. Wait, come on. My Dennis, I've got to be honest. My brother's going to be listening here. Big time Geelong supporter. He's 50 years old. He grew up watching this. He will spew up that I don't know who came off and got Dermot Brereton. Charlie, look this up, please. Who got him? Who got him off the line?
Mark Yates.
It was Mark Yates, and of course Dennis, right?
Yatesy.
Oh, that's just disgusting.
Well, okay,
all of
so-
Geelong
so-
would be
so-
just sickened that I didn't know that.
I'll take you back to my coaching days.
But I will say Dennis didn't know either, so... Oh, you had it written down. Sorry, Dennis.
Yeah, at least I came prepared. Not
Yes,
knowing. It just took a day to find it.
Fair.
Anyway, so what was I saying?
Yes, Mark Yates off the square,
Mark Yates.
89,
Okay,
Dermot
so I'm
Brereton.
doing the opening bounce, and it was funny because Blighty and I were pretty good friends.
Malcolm Blight, coach
When
of
he-
Geelong at the time.
Yeah, he was a coach at Geelong, but when he was not so much then, he sort of drifted away. Blighty's his own man and had business to do. But when we were commentators together, we often flew together and we had some chats. Anyway, we were talking at one stage about something that had occurred in my coaching days. There was a bloke in the Waffle who used to, no names, no pack drill. He played for Swan Districts, but he used to stand off the pack and do exactly what happened in that grand final.
Dermot Brereton coming off and...
Yeah, so he'd just pick blokes off. More so at boundary throw-ins. He sort of hung back, played for a very good team here, Swan Districts, and they were sort of riding high at that time. Anyway, we sort of one day, a couple of us had a look at him sort of on tape, and he'd hang back, and he had a really good hit record. He was getting sort of most blokes, or at least one every fortnight, you know.
Wow, that's
and they were
impressive.
coming off, and they drag their legs and their boots, and it looks very sad. You know, they got no spring step at all.
Oh, boy.
So anyway, we looked at it, and we've decided, well, the thing we can do here, probably, this is West Perth. We're talking West Perth now. So the thing we can do here is we watched him sort of in a couple of tapes, and of course he set himself on a bloke from about 30 metres away, boundary throw-ins mainly. So I've said, clearly, the time is not, well, we came to the conclusion, I gave myself too much credit there, but we came to the conclusion that this bloke can't be looking in two places. So what we did was had a player who was, he had dark arts about him too, he was on the dark side a little bit.
Good.
So we said to him, and he was very quick, and about 6'2", can move, he could really move. So we decided, this is a long-winded story, but we decided that when he was going to make his move, the way to go was to pick him off. So what we did, sort of game of Leadville Oval actually, he came off with his legs dragging.
Wow.
And I shouldn't feel sort of upbeat about that, but I am still. It gives me a thrill.
So what did you do? Did you tell
I told my bloke to go and cut him off at the pass.
No, but are you telling me you told Malcolm Blight to do this and he sent Yates
Well,
after Dermot Brereton?
I discussed it with him.
And then it happened. So you
Well,
spoke
that
it
was-
into
it was
existence.
Probably, it's probably a while later, but he was in the media at that stage. So I'm not saying, yes, I am. I'm saying that I had a hand in it.
You were the hand of God to break Dermot Brereton's ribs. You single-handedly broke his ribs.
Oh, yeah, I feel bad about that too, man. He was a good bloke, Dermot.
Well, he comes back and plays a part in that game, and Hawthorn win that game, 89 grand
Yeah,
final.
that's right. I remember. I was there.
You were calling by the
I
sounds
was.
of things.
Like calling badly at the start. I was so excited.
Well, you saw it happen?
Sort of, out of the corner of my eye. But the ball, if you may remember, went the other way.
Yes.
Went down towards the city end. So I was ignoring that, which is probably bad karma,
Yes.
and going back to the bloke on the deck.
Yes.
It was Dermot, though.
So are they the best games?
Was that a long-winded story
No, it was
that took
perfect.
us nowhere?
This podcast is built for long-winded stories, Dennis.
Yep.
You got one, didn't you? You just got one.
It was perfect. Are they the best games? Grand finals? Is that a silly question? You can see games in season that are just as good quality, right?
Of course, yeah, and of course what they stand for is obviously at the top of the list. But
Rivalries.
when you look back over grand finals in most leagues, in recent times, there haven't been many good ones. I mean, the good ones are memorable, aren't they?
I don't think you called 2018. I don't think you called
Who was that?
the good one, West Coast Collingwood. The one.
No, I didn't call that one. No, that was
disappointing.
we were in it with 10, weren't we? 10, I think, at the finals. I was at 9 then, and 9 didn't take the finals at all. So
I was a bit disappointed that Dennis didn't call my grand final, my premiership. No Dennis Cometti calling Schofield.
That's okay. You got a premiership.
Yeah,
Just take that.
Would have liked Dennis calling it.
What about Western derbies when you would have seen a few fights break out? You would have been almost commentating like a boxing match at points.
Yeah, they were strange affairs, weren't they? But they were never competitive until right near the end of my time doing them. Because I didn't do many derbies really, when I was at 7, they wouldn't send me back here to do derbies too often. So I didn't see a lot of them after I sort of got caught up with Friday night football. But no, they were interesting affairs at the start, but there was only one team winning at the start. I can't remember how many they won on the trot. Probably in double figures, 11 or 10.
Yeah, there was a few.
Well, you should be imbued in that. You're at this club. You should know the history of
Dennis,
the club.
I'm not a forward like you, remembering 4 goals that I did or didn't kick in 1968. I remember premierships, and that's about it, Dennis.
I think it was 7. But no, that's, that's fine.
What about play-by-play calling?
Yeah.
You clearly made an occupation, a living, and you turned it into something, like a player, changing the way it was done. What about aspiring play-by-play callers? Because people, you look at what you do and guys around the league do, and you sound like you're a little bit your own man, but do you have advice that you'd give someone that wanted to play-by-play call or get into it, or, is there tricks, trades? What is it?
Well, the problem is I think it's a really little pool that you're sort of coming from, isn't it? I mean, you can't help but be influenced by people you listen to. I was fortunate, I think. I came into television, having been a long time in radio, sort of to begin with. When I say a long time, a long way back. When I started in radio, those commentators no longer were around when I was doing television on Channel 7. And because of that, the stuff I pinched from them, in some cases, nobody knew about. I mean, they didn't know the people concerned, particularly in Victoria and South Australia. They would have known the people if they'd been, in the last decade, because they were very much on my patch.
Yes.
And so I think everyone takes a fair bit from other people and other styles, but I went overseas a lot more. I listened to stuff overseas, particularly fast-moving sports, and there weren't a lot of those. But
like what?
Well, I certainly liked... I like the gridiron, but that's not a fast-moving sport unless it moves quickly. You know what I mean?
Yes.
It has its spurts, but it's not...
a lot of stoppages.
Yeah, too many. But I watch a lot of it. I think I've got all the apps known to man now that I'm retired.
Really?
Yeah. I was watching highlights of baseball today.
Do you have a team, an NFL team?
Well, you have to have a team. You can't watch, can you, without having a team?
Who's your...
Everything Atlanta is me.
Atlanta Falcons. Atlanta Braves.
Yes.
Atlanta Hawks?
Yes. For my sins, Hawks, although they had a good year last year.
Atlanta, how does that... Did you pick alphabetical or just pick the first one you saw?
Another long story, see.
That's okay.
No, what happened was there was a bloke at the football club. I didn't know him when I started coaching, but he was on the East Coast, and he was a West Australian, but a young fellow. Anyway, he discovered Elle Macpherson as the Coke girl. He did. And then he could live anywhere in Australia. Like, he didn't have to be in Sydney. He was a Western Australian, so they said, well, you can go anywhere because you found Elle. So anyway, he was backwards and forwards then to Atlanta, the home of Coca-Cola.
Right.
So as
when
a
you say he found Elle...
He
discovered her?
Discovered her, yes.
Wow.
Yeah, so he's only a young fella and he's 30. So anyway, he discovered her, so he sort of takes her to America and it's all go, So, but then Atlanta is the home of which company?
Coca-Cola.
Oh, exactly. So
thanks, Dan.
Yeah, nailed it.
Look at you.
Partnership.
That was the blankest look I have ever seen.
This is a partnership.
Oh, yeah. All right.
Well,
help. Anyway, so there's Elle. And we didn't meet her, but he knew everybody over there because, he's sort of been a big man in town. Yeah. And he went to the sport and he sort of suggested we follow the Falcons, and he arranged to meet a few people at the Falcons. So, we just bounced over there one year, sort of one of those trips you claim taxation on as a learning trip.
Live microphones, Dennis.
They can't catch me now. I'm a retired senior citizen.
On the run by the sound.
They're trying to put me away, though.
Ansett Australia, ATO, they're all coming up.
No, you're both good at your job. You're just getting this stuff out of me I shouldn't be giving away.
It's good. It's good. I love that you're a big American sports fan. I didn't know about that.
Oh, I love it, yeah.
What about the 2021 Grand Final? What sort of a moment was that for you, given that, it was at the end of your career? Was that a hard sell from Triple M to get you on the call?
No. I was quite happy to do it. In fact, I was working with them anyway because after I'd finished on television, I did 5 years with Triple M just here in Perth. So, I was down to do that one. And it was terrific because as a boy, first off, I started to barrack for Melbourne. My dad, the first footy jumper I ever had was a Melbourne jumper. He came back from Melbourne. He'd been over there on something. And anyway, he brought this back with him. And then the Bulldogs because I was there. So it was almost a grand final for me, made in heaven.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed the day. Radio in some respects is harder than footy because it's a big ground and sometimes, unless you look at a monitor, it's out of sync most times, so you can't look there for the bloke that's got the pill. You know, and anyway, it's more taxing, I think, and you can't sort of do what you did on television. But that day, I sort of really worked hard on the game, and I thought for a final game, I'd done well. And I like to look back on that game, and the fact that the Bulldogs lost wasn't really the main thing. I think the fact that Melbourne won was fine by me, but it was a game that I don't know, it was kismet, really, the way it ended.
It sounded like full circle footy moment.
It
like
was.
Melbourne Bulldogs to begin with and to finish.
Yeah, that's right. So a little ironic.
What was the feeling like when they go, all right, and we're off air? Is there sort of this, feeling of just elation that you're done, or I don't know, what was that moment like?
Being retired.
Yeah.
No, there was no elation. I mean, I retired sort of from the television, so being back in Perth, I just wanted to do it. My son was the statistician. That was one of the conditions. I couldn't employ him anywhere else. He wasn't doing any good, so I said, make him a statistician.
Yeah. I was going to ask that. What was it like working with your son? Not many people get to do that.
No, it was very good. I enjoyed it, and he was away for a long time. He was over in America.
A sportsman in his own right.
Yeah, he's I know of a sportsman.
That's a sportsman, wrestling, sportsman,
entertainer,
wrestling. Yeah,
that's sport. That see Dan and Will over there wrestling in America. Dan.
No, but well, anyway, he enjoyed it. But it was time he came back because I didn't like him in America. America is a strange place, and a few things happened. Actually, the night before he came away, there was a woman who she'd been a singer at a nightclub, and she was giving an interview after it, and someone walked up and shot her. And the following day, this is where he was living in the city, and he wasn't far away from it. And the following day, a bloke opened up with a semi-automatic gun and killed about 10 people. This is terrible for your podcast, I understand. No. But
crazy.
He just let go with, and killed about 10 people in a nightclub. And they were the 2 days before my son flew home. So by the time he got home, we were very glad to see him.
Yeah, I can imagine. That work relationship, and I listened a bit to you guys, working with your son special to you?
Yeah. I really enjoy it. Yeah, he was in a... Talking about my son now, you got me going. But he was in an episode just recently of Young Rock. He went to Queensland and was in Young Rock. So he's carving out more money than his father now. But we've gone down a path that perhaps may not be of any interest to your listeners. I don't know.
I used to work at the Wildcats, and I remember your son coming into the office once just to do some calling just to people on the phone, just so we could get better on talking to strangers.
Really?
Yeah. Did you
send him down there, Dennis?
No, I didn't. His mother probably did that. Get out of the house.
All right, I've got something for you here.
Yes.
Well, certainly Matthew, this is Richardson, thinks he's the best player on their list at the moment. Mind you, that's a bit like being the best centre-half forward in Czechoslovakia.
Did I say that? Oh, golly, I'm proud of myself.
Czechoslovakia, Dennis.
That's a bit harsh to Richo.
Well, Richo had some funny nights. Richo could get very angry on the footy field, couldn't he?
We did speak to him on this podcast, Dennis. We had
good bloke.
Richo, just a great bloke. And you know what? It could be self-deprecating, and I think that's sometimes the greatest type of humour.
Yeah.
It was happy to take the piss out of himself and realise that he had a little bit of white line fever with those umpires as well, those rascally umpires.
No, he's a great man to work with. I like Richo.
So, given you've worked in footy so long, you've played, you've coached, you've broadcast, you're now retired watching as a fan or whatever you'd like to call yourself now, Dennis. What's been the biggest changes in the game over that period of time? It's a broad question.
Yes. Well, it's a different game. I mean, it's a non-stop game now. In the old days, when I first started playing and for a couple of decades later, it was slow. It was a slower game, but it was perhaps a little more spectacular. There's some wonderful marks taken. Generally, it was one-on-one marking. There were packs too, but the players there had different skills, and marking was one of them, high marking. Now they can still take a high mark. I'm not saying they can't, but the game doesn't lend itself to that as much, I don't think. There's not as... players like you in the back pocket spoiling things, coming up and punching it away.
That's a skill, Dennis.
Take a mark.
I know it's a skill,
It is
but
a
it's,
skill.
it's like the dark arts.
Yes.
Yes, that's right.
Again, a skill.
So, I'm not saying it's not a skill. Being an assassin's a skill, but at the same time, so players are, they know when they can't mark it, I think, much better than they used to.
Yes.
But blokes would try and mark the ball. It was not necessarily punch it away at all costs. If you're slightly out of position, back yourself in. But anyway, it was more stop-start, but the blokes who played it, I was going to say were tougher individuals. That's not right, because the blokes today, no one takes a shortcut because you're on television and they'll show it.
Yeah.
And they do show it, which is unfair, I think. But in the old days, they worked harder. A lot of them were tradesmen. It was a different feel to it. But I've been in love with it from the start, and I never stopped loving it. So today I love, and back then I loved. It's been terrific to me, and I can't think of anything I could have done better in my life than spend it watching footy.
Does anything frustrate you watching the game now? Do you yell at umpiring decisions?
No, I did when I coached, but that's another. I'm embarrassed now when I look back at myself sometimes. It's easy to do. You get into that sort of, but not now. No, and I don't think I ever raise any issues about the umpires in broadcasting. I don't think it's fair. It'd be a very difficult job. Very difficult job. Everyone says that, but I know it would be. I think footy was great, and footy is great. I can't get enough of it.
It's good. Could be a good way to...
Yeah, I want to read another quote from Dennis.
I want to look at my watch.
One quote. Dennis is bored, so he's leaving.
No, I'm not bored.
He's just checking when dinner's ready,
You said
correct?
probably 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Said.
It was like a self-sourcing pudding. Players just waiting for the whistle.
I don't even understand what he said.
That's one of yours.
Who is that idiot?
I don't know. It's
There you
very
go.
good, though. What about just wonderful courage from Paul Hazelby, one of our own? He
Yes.
bounced off one guy into the path of another. If you watch that replay backwards, I bet it says, Paul is dead.
Oh, that's a Beatles. Is that a Beatles?
I think so. I think, yes. Yeah.
Oh, my, that is just...
Well, I think it was John was dead, but I Paul. I just ran with it. It might have been Paul. I don't know. I can't remember now.
Well, yeah.
I like the
this is-
Beatles.
Yeah, that's good.
You've had an incredible career broadcasting, Dennis.
Yes.
I've watched from afar. I've been involved in things. It's been great spending time with you. We do have time for just one last little part where
Yes.
we get our audience, the listeners, to ask you the questions. So we've got eight or so questions.
can wrap
here.
Is this live?
This is called Dennis. This is
They
this
put
is
them
one
on
of some of
Instagram.
our better work right here. Social media.
Schofield.
Will Schofield. Social media.
Where there's a will, there's a way.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. I'm sure you would have said that, surely.
Yeah,
What's
that's
that
it.
line? In commentary.
What's that?
Where there's a will, there's a way. That was mum. That is mum's favourite saying.
I bet it is. Yeah, that's a beauty. No, I like that.
We can rapid fire through these.
So social media.
So you've got people out there now listening to this.
No, we just gave him a little prompt that maybe Dennis might be coming past the studio.
Okay. All right.
Matt Cutback asks,
Okay. Did players or coaches ever get in touch with Dennis to provide some feedback on his call after a game? Any notable/funny examples?
did anyone give you a bit of feedback, Dennis?
Well, I hate to sort of cut this off at its knees. No, never heard from a coach at all.
There you go.
Good. Candace Spag.
If he could pick his own call team for the grand final, who would you work with? So yourself,
You have
plus
to
one
pick
other
yourself,
caller,
apparently.
two specials and two boundary from any era. So
You
you've
don't
got
have
to
to go
pick your whole
too
team.
detailed.
You
Yeah.
must think I'm stupid. I'd have my son as the statistician. That's about all I'd do.
Bruce would be next year, surely.
Yeah,
Dennis.
no, he would. He
Very-
would.
very
And I'm
good.
trying
Send
to,
down to Richo. Thanks, Rich. You'd send it down to Richo occasionally.
Yeah, Richard on the boundary.
Tell
Yeah.
us about the conditions down there, Richo. How's it looking?
Isn't he a master of that? Isn't he?
Great night for footy.
How many times
Thanks,
can you
Richo.
say what the weather's like downstairs? It's cold. It's cold. It's wet. I'm sick of being down here. I want to be upstairs with you, Dennis.
Yeah, it's going to be a bit slippery. Yeah, all of that.
All right. This one's from Dill Lonigan.
Obviously, the great man has many great calls, but which call, if any, would you like to go back in time and redo?
Redo. Redo. Look, I can't remember. It's not saying they're all good, but I can't remember any that
That's
I'd like
fine.
to redo.
There you go.
I think we covered that a bit in you didn't feel like you to go back and do anything, so I think that's fair enough.
Yep.
Scotty Fingert.
Yep. Are you a Twilight Grandy fan or traditionalist?
Traditionalist, afternoons.
Yep.
And that's why it's going this year. It's just been announced. Grand final will be in the afternoon. So happy with that. Leave it the MCG forever.
Yep. Oh, well, no, I'd like to see them take it out at the MCG just occasionally. Maybe once every 5 years, just to do a little South Australia, Western Australia number.
It was a great spectacle here. I know it was your last game, but to have this game over here, Western Australia, it was alive.
Oh, great. Outstanding, and did a great job with it, Western Australia.
Tom Kennedy.
Would love to hear his thoughts on the new dissent rule, given your experience from playing, coaching and commentating all these years.
Well, I'm not strong on it, but no, I think at the moment it's a little sort of... if you introduce something like this rule, I think you've probably got to overcook it and then ease back, and I think that's what they're doing. But, yeah, a couple of decisions I've seen, you think, please.
Okay, very good. Fair enough. Michael_John_Watkins.
Not many will remember Jackson Crabb.
Do you remember Jackson Crabb?
I'm one of the many. Who did he play for?
There we go.
But I'll never forget, Crabb goes sideways, surprised his opponent didn't see that coming.
Did I say that?
You did.
It's in
About
quotation
Jack
marks, apparently.
Oh, good. G'day, Jack.
I love that. Joey_Italiano.
So, yeah, hey, Dennis, any funny memories or thoughts on doing the AFL Evolution game commentary? Were there any moments... did you ever play the game?
Did you
What
ever...
was that? No.
AFL Evolution? Play?
No, I never did.
No, all
I
right.
was exhausted from doing the commentary. That was a lot of work.
Too busy dreaming about hitting hole-in-ones. Matthew Reese.
How did he rate his career at the mighty Maddington Bulls footy factory? And could he still remember the words to the song?
Well, it's funny. I was out there this weekend. Actually, they had a big day, so I was out with the Bulls. We didn't sing the song though, and if we did, I think a lot of the blokes didn't know the words, even if they started out knowing them that day.
You won premierships at Maddington, didn't you?
We won three on the trot. Yes,
You at centre half forward or full forward?
on the ball,
On ball.
just ruck roving. And having no barriers. All my players talk about is from that day, they were there again moaning about it at the weekend. All you did was call for it on the outside.
Oh, that's very good. All right, 4 to go, Dennis. _ Crony.
Yes.
Ask him if his biggest accomplishment is having a punk band named after him.
Now, this is serious stuff. They're
is.
doing really well, aren't they?
That's
the Dennis Comettis.
The Dennis Comettis, right? This is
the
real.
Dennis Comettis. I've been along a couple of times.
Have
Have
you?
you?
Yeah, I have. Don't like their stuff much. But they're terrific. I didn't start out a grunge man. Now I'm into it.
Yeah.
Yeah, got their stuff in the car.
I mean, you started with music, so it makes sense.
It does. It does. They wouldn't have known that, though. They're so young.
Are they? I haven't heard.
Oh, very young.
That's good.
They went to England recently and did really well. They were in some contest, worldwide contest, and they came 5th or 6th or something.
Surely you get free tickets to concerts, Dennis.
Not in England. I wouldn't mind that.
Now you're going to start getting those requests, those freaking flyers back with Handstand Australia. All right, Mr. MDS85.
What's the true origin of Centimetre Perfect? I recall the footy show doing a bit on it.
MDS85. Now, what sort of a man or woman doesn't give their name?
I don't
They
know.
want to know my innermost thoughts.
And then
And if they are,
It could
Anonymous.
be Mr. MDS. I don't know.
Okay.
Centimetre Perfect.
Well,
Where
you
did
get-
that start? Or is it just...
well, when I was a boy, there was a saying, this is terrible now, I'm sort of going to be seen for what I am. When I was a boy, there was a saying called inch perfect, and I only went metric.
All right.
So let's leave it at that.
That's great. I love that. Shane Haddo.
Oh,
Okay.
2 to go.
2 to go.
2 to go.
Would Buddy Franklin have done better in the 80s or the 90s?
He would have done better. Well, he would have
Or
done
now.
well anywhere now. I can't see that he wouldn't have been a great player in any era. I mean, he's just such an athlete.
He would have
Highly
been
skilled.
isolated inside forward 50,
Yeah.
like a Lockett, like an Ablett, like a Dunstall.
Well, in those days, I don't think there were many as quick as him for his size. You know, I mean, he's just a beautiful mover, isn't he? That's the thing about him. I just hope he doesn't stay too long at the fair. I want to remember him at his very best. And now the games aren't all of that quality. Not that they were always all of that quality, but things shone through in games. And now I feel as though he's getting close to the end. It'd be lovely if he played at the standard he's playing at now, but to go for another year or two might be sort of just the wrong thing to do. That sounds,
No, that's fair.
I admire him so much, and that is out of admiration that I say that. I just love to remember him, really at the peak of his powers still.
You describe him as beautiful, Dennis. You never got to play on him. I did. Beautiful's not the word I would have used to describe him. Kicking 8 goals at me at Optus Stadium at the first game ever.
That was an aberration.
Beautiful would have had a word after it probably.
Yeah.
Maybe a swear.
How did you find him as a bloke?
Oh, as a bloke and as a player, he was the only player. I distinctly remember this moment. It was pretty early in my career, 2010-11, that I was in front of a contest and I turned around to I was too close to Crumb, but I was too far away to do anything. So I sort of just turned around and Darren Glass was playing on him at the time. And I just remember turning and he jumped. And it was like one of the only times I wasn't scared, but I was intimidated. He was just his arms were long. He was quick. He was strong. He had every element you could ever fear as a backman. And I remember, I don't have a great memory with games. A lot of them blur into others. I'm not sure if you're like that, but I certainly don't have, a photographic memory. But I just have this moment. I remember turning to my right and Buddy Franklin. It felt like his feet were at in my eyes, just a giant. And I didn't feel that a lot. Aaron Sandilands, maybe. Not many other guys I looked up at, and he was one of those. And just an incredible player. I feel fortunate to have been given a few baths by him along the way, Dennis. I'm trying my best to keep up with him.
Marvellous player, just a marvellous player.
Very last one. I think this is a nice one to finish on, maybe. T_Dizzy _.
What is something about being a commentator that most people wouldn't know?
Is there anything as a commentator that you
Little
think...
trade secret.
I mean, the binoculars thing is different. The fact that you sit down, I think, as a commentator. Is there anything that people wouldn't know about commentary?
They're saying the worst thing.
Anything?
You want the worst thing?
No, just...
Sure, if you want to give us the worst
sure.
thing. But something that people wouldn't know as well. People would...
Well, the worst thing is probably very long interviews. about 7 at night.
Can we finish at that, please, Dennis?
I think so.
Very good, mate.
Thanks, Blakes.
I really, really appreciate it, mate.
Terrific. Thanks, Will.
Appreciate your time. Dan and I are very happy to have you. BackChat podcast, Dan. Now, I know you've been heading down to the grunge concerts, Dennis,
Yes.
but might be time to start tuning into some podcasts, i.e. BackChat.
Where do I find that?
Okay, thank you. Backchatpodcast.com.au. You can find it on any podcast streaming network. Just look after BackChat. I reckon if you type in Dennis Cometti BackChat anywhere on the internet, it'll be all over that too. You can listen to us. You can watch us. Find us anywhere on social.
YouTube, Spotify, Apple, it's all there.
Generally, for those sorts of things, well, I know what's in it, so there's nothing really bad in it. It's going to sort of make me feel bad when I listen to it, is there?
No.
Because I've been part of it.
Maybe Ansett comes
that's
after
right,
you, but that's another...
in case you edit it badly, I'll get Velia to listen first and record it for me.
Very good. I'm sending this straight to Velia. Thanks, Dennis.
Thanks, guys.